Welcome to the Tactical Empire, where no-nonsense advice meets winning strategies to help you conquer every aspect of your life.
Listen, this is the first podcast we're ever just going to go right into the conversation. I know some other podcasts do that, but you just made me laugh because, ladies and gentlemen, this is Sean Ryder. I have Brian Strump on the podcast today, and he said that he needed to put a dry shirt on because he just got doing the filthy 50, and it immediately took me back like 12 years.
That was the first workout I ever did in 2007.
Yeah, it was one of the first ones I did when I became a CrossFitter in a dirty parking lot with Adidas Converses on.
I mean, literally like, hey, yeah, I want to come check out the gym. Okay, do you want to work out today? Sure. Here's the workout.
Oh man, well I don't see how that you're sitting upright after that gnarly workout, but I'm sure you're not going 110% balls to the wall like we all used to back in the day. But Brian, welcome to the show on these little short 20, 30-minute episodes where we're bringing on guys from the inner circle. I try not to spend 10 minutes with people's background. Listen, this is what you guys have to know. When we bring people on from the inner circle, these are well-respected men in our group and in their respective industries. And just on a personal note, I've been a friend of Brian's for a while, an observer of Brian's for a while, both when I see what he does in person, when I see what he does on social media, and how he's helped plenty of other people. He owns a business that he's active in, correct me if I'm wrong, which is chiropractic.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Then he owns a business that he's not as active, I will not say passive, but that is the fitness component of that business. Yes?
True.
And then you've been super patient in regards to investing in assets outside of those businesses. Yes?
Also true.
Love it.
Yes.
Well, we're going to try and hit on all that.
Super, you probably had a few more supers, but yeah.
Well, that's one thing that I wanted to talk about today is, Brian has put in the work, been patient with growing a business. He's got some longevity that does not come without its hiccups, punches to the gut, so on and so forth. We know that business isn't easy. Parts of it get easier the longer we go, but we still can wake up and something happens that we have to handle. That's part of the job that we've taken. But one thing is that you've been super patient and super specific about the actions you take. Is this something that's like in your DNA and how you've always been very methodical, very thoughtful on why you make decisions? And is that in all areas of life, or how does your brain work to go deeper?
I think, I like that you put it with a twist, like it's a skill, whereas I look at it as a fault potentially, where like I don't take action fast enough. So yeah, I think in most of my realms of life, I'm probably more like that and less reckless. Like, I mean, I like to gamble, and that's pretty reckless, right? In terms of like finance. I mean, not stupid gambling, but just any gambling.
It's illogical when you're talking about being a rational human, and then you go buy some lottery tickets every other Thursday night, right?
I mean, like if I went to the casino, I'd gamble. If I had to put money on whether like ketchup, mustard, relish, or onions is going to win the race around the diamond at City Park watching the Mets, I would do it.
You brought it up, man. Last night's game, I saw the score. Yeah, that's a little open, but they have a couple more games to go. They're in the National League Championship right now as they're recording on this podcast.
It's a long series, but no. So I think usually I'm pretty like slow to move, pragmatic. I used to be, wanting to know, needing to know everything, wanting to have all my I's dotted and T's crossed. I've gotten better at that. I've gotten more of like that, ready, aim, shoot. Or I'm in another group where we talk about making decisions in the dark, and then kind of, where 60%, and then reassessing the damage, understanding that most of these decisions aren't like life-threatening or life-altering. So I'm getting better at that as I probably get. I don't think it has anything to do with my maturity. I think it has to do with being around people that have done things that I've wanted to do for a while, and they're still like have a roof over their head. They don't all work out. I'm pretty skeptical when I think that's probably the key thing. I'm pretty skeptical of everything. So when I hear most people say like, "Oh yeah, real estate or this or crypto or gyms or laundromats or franchise, whatever," I'm always like, like I feel like the ones that aren't talking are the ones that like aren't doing so well. So I want to hear from those people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, but then I do enough digging, and it's like, oh man, that shit passed me by, and that shit passed me by. So being in groups like this and other groups, and just kind of expounding like friend groups and people that I talk to has been helpful over the years. From not just like collecting dollars, but being able to like start to build assets and not and being less afraid and realizing, okay, if I buy this, what's the worst that could happen? If I
Mm.
bought this, what's the worst that could happen? Like from an asset perspective, not like a watch or a car perspective,
Yeah.
And I think like that's been helpful seeing even like when you bought that building. Like I hear some people do things and it's like man, I don't know how I'd be able to sleep at night if I just wrote a check for that or if I
Mm-hmm.
had to deal with that. And then you're like, okay, I took a small little bite and
Yep.
I survived. And then I took another one. And then this building that we just closed on about a year ago was like my first big piece of like risk that I was like, I still, what's the worst that could happen? I would sell it and I'd figure it out. But um,
I want
I
to harp
feel
on
like
that first. I want to sorry to cut you. I want to harp on that for a second because I think some people they're either like, "Hey, I'm so abundance mindset that I'm only going to look at the positive," and then other people they'll hear like me or you say something about the negative consequences of something, and they're like, "Well, why are you even thinking about the negative?" I'm someone that goes to worst case scenario, and I work my way backwards. I kind of hear that in what you're saying. Would you say that you do that, or you've gotten better at trying to reverse engineer, and that's what puts your
I'm
decisions in
definitely,
perspective?
yes, I'm definitely a glass half empty kind of guy.
Yeah,
From I used to say, that I'm a pessimist, but that can't be true because like I wouldn't have started a business and bought something and tried different things
sure.
if I was pessimistic. So, you know, realistic, that's I don't know. I don't know what you would call it, but I'm
I call
definitely not
myself an optimistic realist. Like I do,
that's yeah, yeah.
I
That's what I think that
want to
would be.
believe, I want to believe in my skills. I want to believe in the education I've received from whomever about a particular thing that it can pay off the way that they say it could pay off. But I'm a realist in that shit can hit the fan anytime. And
Yeah.
prime example, my commercial building's been knock on wood, pretty fine for 2.5, 3 years now. But my North Carolina Airbnb, a hurricane comes through, the house is fine, the retaining wall's not. And it's like, okay, well, a retaining wall. Then you start getting quotes on it and you get,
Right.
wham blasted in the face, like, oh shit. Like, but who was going to think about that on the front end? Like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
hurricane in the
Right.
mountains, right? So you can
Yeah.
plan to the nth degree and shit's still going to happen. But one thing that we preach in the inner circle is having your base. So you talked about maybe it's not maturity, maybe it's, not this thing, but like, do you think that it's part that you do have some sort of secure financial base that you kind
Yeah.
of
I'm
know
sure
where
that
the
helps
bottom is
too.
and the bottom's not a bottom?
Yeah. But but I've had that for a while, right? Which
Hmm.
is, but I just wouldn't make a decision because I liked having money that like, well, shit, it's the less shit I have going out there, then the less shit that could hit the fan,
Yeah.
and it makes it easy. Um, but I think truly just like seeing and hearing people that you know did something and it went bad and did something then it went good and took risks that were in like I don't want to say lesser positions, but like I would imagine like taking a bigger risk than me or buying something smaller than I have with less funds or less money that they know they would come in regularly from a business or something like that, doing it. And I was like, okay. I mean,
Hmm.
I've been talking to Jeff for 6 years,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know, and then we just started small and then a little bit bigger and then a little bigger. And now I feel each one just kind of build my confidence in like what can I figure out. And now it's just I think knowing more people, getting more comfortable with those dollar amounts, getting comfortable with talking to people about those dollar amounts. I think all of those come with like maturity, time, seeing others do it, learning, just like learning how to be more confident in any of those paths, whether it's buying a business or buying a piece of real estate or putting money somewhere else to work,
Yeah.
and trusting like okay, like if I lost this, I could still have a roof over my head, and if that's where I need to start all over too, like that's a tough loss, but I'm not, mortgaging everything for some specific thing. Because
Yeah.
again, I caught the tail end of what you were talking about with Jamie, but it's like I don't need a $100 million,
Hmm.
so I don't need to. I don't need to like. I don't know what the numbers need to be, but I just want to be able to like be comfortable, run around, do the things that I want to do, and the more that I have, the more that I could help people. But also like we'd be lying if it's like it doesn't take a lot more effort to get to 100 million than 5 or 10,
Hmm.
and just like the stresses along with that. So I could just make some smart steps along the way and let it compound for as long as I can, and then wherever I end up,
Yeah.
I just keep
Now,
wishing I started earlier.
how long have you owned your businesses, or a business at least?
In 2009 is when we opened the gym and the doctor's office. I was working as part of a group in since 2003, but in 2009 it's like we just went all in on a credit card. It sounds funny saying it now. All in on a credit card and one securities backed loan that I got from my mom for like $40,000,
Hell yeah.
and that was it. So that was 2009, and then
Oh,
still have the doctor's office and the gym, and then we with a partner got this other gym last March, and
why do you keep going? That's 15 years. Why are you still going?
yeah. It's really weird when I think about it because my my MO would be like just be by yourself, not want to deal with anybody else's bullshit. I have my family and a couple of friends and be good. But there's something about the gym. Like I know there's probably easier ways that I can make money faster,
Hmm.
but there's something about the gym, the people there, and I'm sure it's not just like my gym, but it's also not Planet Fitness.
Hmm.
Like you'll like what it is, the reason
Yeah.
why you did the metabolic. Um, Something about like having somebody in there that's looking for help, needs help, and I know that like I could add a decade or more to their life, and they're so lost and frustrated. And maybe it's just me, but like I am very clear with them and blunt with them. And if they leave, it's like so like I like that it gives me a place that I could talk like that and have relationships like that because most other businesses either you can't or like it's different. Like if I was selling roofing or if I was a plumber or I opened a coin laundromat,
Hmm.
like I'm not having those conversations with people. And it's really odd that the older that I get, I realize like those relationships. I don't want to say they're important. Like they're not going to be like lifelong relationships, but I enjoy having that banter and time with those people. And same as you, just like knowing people around my community are getting healthier and better is a much better way. Yeah, I might not be maximizing my brain from a financial perspective from a business, but I'm doing exactly what I want, which is like more important
Now,
than
how do you,
maximizing money.
you and I both have owned gyms for quite a while, and we've mentored gym owners for quite a while. I know you've helped a ton of people. You've been surrounded by high level business owners in the gym space, outside the gym space, and you have seen people move on. It's very easy when I talk to other gym owners on getting that, that shiny object syndrome, the squirrels running down the tree on the side. How do you keep yourself in check? And this is me observing from the outside. And it does come back to kind of what you said about how you can just be direct with people and blunt in the space that you're in, but you're also that way on social media. And I wanted to bring that up on like, when I try and provide someone with an answer, this is kind of how I mentor people too. It's like, here's my thought on it, but I always throw buts in. Like, if this one thing was different, I would think about it this way because I kind of want to cover a few bases.
Yeah.
I know you're smart enough to do that, but you don't do that. You deduce people's thoughts, questions, actions. And I don't know if you realize you do this. So I pardon if this is a hard question. You deduce it down into a very simple one sentence phrase or one question. And when I see Brian Strump's name come up on a post, I'm always like, it makes me stop and hesitate and actually makes me think about what you say because it's very pinpointed, or what you're asking, again, because it's very clear. Do you know you do that? And is that how you mentor yourself through these things, from not getting, sidetracked on other objects that people are doing?
Well, thank you first, because I mean, I think I realize that most times when people are asking a question, myself included, we don't really know what the problem is. We just like
Mm-hmm.
ask whatever like the first thing is. So I really want to like find out what's the problem. Like if you just like if you solve this thing, I don't think that the problem's going to be solved. You know. So I think like that's the first thing that I look at, and I mean from like a lot of people joke about my lack of technological savvy and still using paper to write on notes. And like, I think the reason why I don't find or get, you know, lost in the shiny stuff is like, I don't really care about it. Like, I'm not going to say, I hear like Alex Ramosi gets shit from people about all he cares about is business and growing businesses. So like, I'm not that, right? Because I'm a dad. I have my daughter, my wife, my family. So like, I mean, not to say that that's not important to him, right? But like, those are more important than any business I'm going to grow. So, but like, I'm um pretty like those things don't matter. There's a few things that I want to spend my money on. And I told my wife, I was like, hey, let's go to the World Series. I'm getting a ticket. It don't
Yes.
matter. I don't care if it's $1,200. I'm going. You know.
There's gonna be more than that.
Yeah. Well, the tickets to the to this series were like 450. But either way,
I think I paid $1,200 for Ravens Chiefs at Baltimore AFC Championship games last year to surprise my dad, because the two seats
I remember that.
beside it. Yeah, that was $1,200, and I'm glad the weather was nice
So,
because the game
so
was horrible.
like I think the reason why is like those things aren't important to me, and like I don't know right now, and this might change. Right now, my daughter's 12, and I think this is a big part of it. Right now, my daughter's 12, and I was thinking about this when I was riding over because I figured at some point we'd be talking about being a
Hmm.
parent. I feel like these are the years where like, and I could be wrong because I only have one kid, which means I really can't screw this one up, right? I feel like these are the years from like 12 to 18 where your kid either goes this way or they go that way.
Uh-huh.
So could I start something new and that big shiny thing take me on a ride that's going to be 80 hours a day, 80 hours a week working? Yeah, I'm sure I could. But like right now, when she is in seventh grade and she got volleyball and soccer and sports that I want to go to, and I just need to like be there to listen to her, like I'm just not willing to do it.
Hmm.
Like I don't know. I'm sure something could come up that I would be taken apart by something new, but I'm not willing to do that now. I'm 46, maybe when I'm in my mid 50s, and like I was like, okay, now it's like my daughter's like, who are you, Brian? You right? And she's like a college sophomore somewhere. Um, then maybe I'll kind of have the time to like really, I don't want to say be distracted, but really kind of like
Yeah.
go in. But right now I'm in a kind of a good spot. I have some the investments that we've made over the last couple of years that just you know every year 5 or 10% they grow. The gym just kind of stays steady, and if I could get that to kind of kick up a little bit and grow, I have this new gym that I could get up. Like I don't want to say I'm lazy because like that clearly wouldn't be true, but yeah, I just don't. I mean, you people would joke about me wearing like cargo shorts forever. It's like I don't like those. Like I'm pretty freaking simple. So when it comes to those problems, I just try to find like the least like when I heard somebody say keep it simple, stupid. Like that was I remember that.
Be
I
like, hey,
remember
I'm
where I was
stupid.
when I
I'm
first heard it.
stupid. I can't keep
You
it
know,
simple.
and I know right now keep it simple, stupid. Some people even get offended by that.
Watch
But
out.
again,
We're gonna
I
get
don't really
banned.
care. yeah. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I, I think part of it is just like where I am in life with my daughter, that I don't want to get taken off on a tangent, and then part of it is just like that's just I I try to boil it down to like the simplest things, and most of the time, even when my staff comes in, I'm just asking them questions,
Mm.
because I think most of the time, like we're trying to figure out a problem that's not really the like isn't really the problem, or like I think that might be, but I really look at like the second and third order of things that trickle down and happen
Sure.
when we're trying to solve a problem. And I feel like a lot of times in a business, we're just trying to figure out like, I need like really urgent, I need to figure this out right now, although it might not be the best thing.
Yeah.
And like sometimes that keeps me from firing a staff person fast enough because I'm looking at those things. So it's not necessarily like a gift. Like sometimes it's leads to some difficult situations for like myself when I'm doing that as well.
Sure. Now, one thing I did want to bring up, you talked about firing staff, but I do know that you have a track record of retaining employees very, very well. And when we're talking, guys, I know small businesses as defined by the government is like 500 employees or less and like $50 million or whatever it may be. Like, so I always say like super small businesses,
Yeah.
maybe less than $1 million, 5 to 10 people, or even smaller, doesn't
Right.
matter. You've done a really good job at retaining people. So, one, what do you attribute that to? Two, if you'd rather answer this question, do you think leadership is more passive or more active than most people think it is?
Two things. One, what do I attribute it to? I remember as a kid, my entire life, my mom hating every job that she had,
Mm.
working at an eyeglass store, and she finally had a boss who like praised her and said she was doing a good job and paid attention to her. So that always struck me. I was like, why do you hate these jobs? Why is every boss an asshole? But it's like they just never really like checked in with them, talked to any of the people, asked them how they're doing, asked them how they could help. So I just remembered that, like, man, I can't imagine if every person that ever works for me goes home at night and tells their spouse and their kids
Mm.
that I hate working for Brian. That I remember as long as I can remember. I think the other part, I heard something. I think the culture's, I don't like mission, vision, whatever.
It's
You know,
tough.
some people love it. I don't. But I think like the culture of your business is super important. And I think the culture, I don't know where I read this or heard it. Um, Culture can't be taught. It's caught. And like that has was really impactful because that I could really, I didn't know how to put that into words, but like when if I hired you and I gave you this book of like 50 pages full of crap that you're never going to read, you're going to read it once and then never read it again, like I don't see the value in that, right? In the book, not Unreasonable Hospitality, but the other one that he wrote, Setting the Table or something, my, that Danny Meyer said something about SOPs. He's like, I don't need to have an SOP for everything. If I need to tell my server how they need to act when they go wait on a table, I'm hiring idiots. And
Mm.
that's exactly how I felt
Hmm.
because I don't have an SOP for everything. So I think understanding that culture of how you run things is caught, not taught, and having people come in and the staff seeing it just from if the toilet needs to be plunged and there's nobody to plunge it, guess who's plunging it? If there's paper on the ground, they don't walk over it. If something needs to be cleaned, I'm gonna clean. Like, yes, the people have their jobs, but I'm not gonna be like, sure, why didn't you clean it? Or I'm not gonna leave it. And I could be really spiteful, right? But I'm not gonna just like leave this mess piling up and be like, I don't know why the garbage isn't taken out. I guess Sean forgot what his job was. Like, I'm
Hmm.
just gonna do it and then just like ask you a question afterwards. Hey, what was going on that this didn't happen? And let's kind of figure it out. But I think like those two things, paying attention to the staff, that I kind of took that lesson from my mom of how she always hated the people that she worked for, and just understanding that like that role of the leader, I think is super, super important over the last 4 years. I think that's where I spent most of my time paying attention to like communicating from like that leadership spot so it doesn't seem like you're talking down to people and also giving them the ability and freedom to feel comfortable to like talk up to you because usually as a leader, right, like what you're being is like spoon-fed crap because nobody everybody's scared to say something to you
Mm.
or they don't want to bring a mistake to you because of how you've reacted in the past. So really trying to pay attention to those things. That answers the question.
It does. I mean, do you think, just overall, a blanket statement? I know you and I both try to avoid those as much as possible, and that's something that I did learn from you. I've learned to try not to use absolutes. You corrected yourself earlier when you said no one or everyone, then you said many or whatever it was. So that's something that I have actually learned from you. And I'll type out, well, always, and I'm like, oh shit, no, that's a Brian Strump. I can't say that. So I appreciate that. But do you think people think leaders should always be in, always leading? And I think when I say leading, it's like, just because I was a former football player, like I thought leadership was motivational leadership and like rah rah. And so when I got into business, I realized real quickly, like, I can't walk in and rah rah every day. And so what I'm hearing from you is like, hey, this is really about connecting. This is about communicating. This is about listening. And that, like, on the outside, like, that's, to me, that's more passive. So how do you view, like, how do you pace yourself as a
It's funny
leader
that
is maybe the better question.
it's funny that you said that, like, you as a leader is like rah rah and that, because I played football and lacrosse from no, sorry, I played a little lacrosse. That wasn't any good. Football and soccer for most of my life through college, and I was never. I was mostly the captain,
Mm-hmm.
but I was never rah rah.
Mm-hmm.
I was like lead by example. Act like you've been there before, and that's kind of how like I was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's how I lead there too.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it could be passive, but I think it's just like you doing what you do every day. So if my staff knows that I'm working and I'm busy and I'm doing stuff, then like they know that Brian has, that like we're all working together. Our work might look different. Like, yeah, you might be coaching classes, or you might be doing this, you might be doing that, but I'm doing all these things that like aren't seen and probably
Mm-hmm.
aren't even heard, and members might not even know who I am. Like, I'm okay with that, but I understand why some people want their name like as the leader of the law firm,
Yeah.
or up there. I don't care.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that that's kind of how I lead. I think I think you could. I don't know if the word passive is right. I think if you train, you could certainly train your staff, or like key staff, to be like the heads, right? Because I got to imagine that like the biggest companies that are out there, those guys aren't around all the time. Or even like mid-sized companies, those leaders, or even when the leaders passed away and the company still kind of holds those values. Um, I think that there's a few key people, um, that are always there, that are like holding the
Mm-hmm.
standard culture. I guess you could use those interchangeably. That are always there, and that makes like you as the leader, not like, maybe then that's passive, right? I
Well,
don't think
what
you would
what I
always be.
hear, not to put words in your mouth, but they're the words that you use. Like, consistency in your actions establishes the standard, and the standard in turn establishes the culture. And doing those things over a long enough period of time, you get a pretty consistent track record of business ownership, which is why we brought Brian on the podcast. So, Brian, take as long as you want to answer this question and say anything that you want, but I like to end the podcast interviews with, like, what is Brian Strump focused on right now, and what is he working on? What wakes him up in the morning? We talked business. We talked about your daughter. We talked about your family. We talked about, being in the fitness space, even if the juice isn't as much as some other type of business. But, like, what are you doing right now? What are you trying to move the needle on in any area of life right now that you want to put out into the universe?
Right now, you know, two things. Well, a few things. One, I bought this building 10 months ago, almost tomorrow, 10 months ago. So I think from like that big perspective, that was the biggest investment that I've ever made, the largest check that I ever wrote, the biggest debt I ever took on. So I think just kind of fully understanding like one full year's worth of
Yeah.
like how that fits into my life. One. Two, just kind of um, pushing these businesses along. Most of my job now is kind of creating content, creating relationships. So I'm just trying to be as consistent as possible, doing that consistently, and like meeting with staff, helping staff, finding ways for them to grow. And then three is just like, you know, it's volleyball and soccer season, so I'm just like talking my daughter's face off on how to get better at both of those and how to stay out of all like the bullshit that seventh grade girls are,
Oh,
you know, and it brings me back to really realizing how important, in my opinion, right, team sports and like coaches are in general, good or bad. Because right now she has a pretty poor volleyball coach, but it's teaching her lessons that like you don't always get what you want.
yeah.
That's not fair, So it really kind of best people don't always play.
Yep.
So it's really cool, kind of like living that real time, being able to kind of go there and see that and do that. So I guess my daughter in her sports and growing up, figuring out this commercial purchase building, and then just being consistent in like my actions to grow these two gyms to continue to push forward.
I love that, and I respect that, and I appreciate that. Just as to kind of connect with that is I lost my way on my superpower in my gym that I closed down 8 months ago because I do think my superpower is content creation. And I peeled myself away from that and just kind of put that on cruise control. And now with this new endeavor, I've kind of like reignited that passion. So I like that you brought that up, that's kind of like your role and job, maybe the active part of what you're doing to benefit the macro business. But of course, you're leading your people, which we've touched on today. So I appreciate you bringing that up. My daughter's in second grade, so I'm not dealing with the seventh grade bullshit yet, but I look forward to it. You know what everyone else says. They said wait till they turn teenagers. It's the worst years. I'm like, I don't know. 2 and 3 was pretty bad, but I know it's coming. But I do believe what you said in regards to like, I'm probably gonna parent my daughter. I hope I parent my daughter a little bit different than some of these people that are telling me like hell's right around the corner. So I know it's not gonna be easy.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Every year, I don't want her to get any older, but every year is better and better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be fine.
Brian, I appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you sometime soon at a future meetup. And man, keep doing your thing. You're helping a lot of people, whether you're working with them one-on-one or making your posts on social media. If you don't follow Brian, get on his mainly what, Facebook?
Yeah, I don't know my login to Instagram. I actually just found out today that if you're following somebody and you click on the video, then it tells them that you watched the video or something.
Uh-oh.
I don't know anything about it. I mean, I wasn't doing it,
Uh-oh.
but,
You've been watching videos of people that you don't want to know you're watching them, and they know that you're watching them. Watch out. Now you're going to lose sleep.
I said, man, Taylor Swift is going to see like Travis Kelce, Brian Strump, and 1.5 billion people watch this video.
Who is this guy? Brian, man, I appreciate you, and we'll have you on again in a future episode. I'm sure of it.
Thank you.